everyone! Come back with me at Taekook Velvet, a home for you lovers of Taekook's iconic dynamics. Don't forget to prepare your snacks, because today we will discuss something really fun. Stay tuned! The sound of the calm pool water ripples suddenly burst by the roar of suppressed breath, creating a subtle echo between the silent marble walls. Taehyung and Jungkook are in the dimmest corner, where the shadows refract their silhouettes until they almost merge with the sparkling water surface. Under the clear surface, their fingers are tightly linked, as if looking for a grip in the midst of the turmoil of feelings that are difficult to express in words. The silence felt so heavy and sweet at the same time, a secret room that they deliberately built in the midst of the hustle and bustle of the world that always watched their every move. The intimacy reached its peak when Jungkook took a deep breath, staring closely into Taehyung's eyes that reflected the moonlight. Without a sound, Taehyung approached, erasing the remaining distance until their lips met in a kiss that felt like an escape as well as a return. The water that wets their faces becomes a silent witness to an unspoken promise, a secret that they keep tightly at the bottom of the deep pool. Their heartbeats collided quickly, defeating the sound of water drops falling from the ends of their hair, creating a harmony that only the two of them understood. However, the calm was shattered instantly when the sound of heavy footsteps echoed from the direction of the entrance hallway. The sharp light of the flashlight suddenly swept the surface of the water, splitting the darkness and forcing them to release the link in a hurry. Both of them were glued in a position that was difficult to explain, with their breath still out and their eyes filled with surprise. One had seen what was supposed to remain a secret underwater, and in that fateful second, the secret world they had built seemed to crack, leaving a gripping silence between the ripples of water that hadn't yet calmed down. The coldness of the pool water now feels more piercing to the bone when they realize that their privacy has been violated. The light of the flashlight was still dancing on the surface of the water, as if looking for evidence of what had just happened there. Taehyung tried to control his irregular breathing, while Jungkook remained silent, his eyes fixed on the silhouette standing at the end of the pool. The fear of the consequences of this moment began to creep in their minds, destroying the remnants of the warmth of the kiss that they had felt. In that gripping silence, only the sound of their heartbeats was heard beating synchronously. Thoughts about career, reputation, and worldview seemed to hit them in a big, suffocating wave. They know that in this industry, just one small mistake can mean the end of everything, especially a moment that is so personal and emotional like this. However, behind that fear, there was a glimmer of anger because they couldn't have a single night without being disturbed. The figure holding the flashlight finally stepped forward, clarifying the face full of disbelief. It turned out that it was one of the security staff who had known them for a long time, but the surprise on his face could not be hidden. The silence between the three of them felt so thick that it was difficult to breathe, as if time had stopped spinning in the private pool area. No words came out, just an exchange of views loaded with a very heavy secret burden. Taehyung finally broke the silence with a low but firm voice, trying to calm the increasingly heated situation. He stepped slowly towards the pool stairs, letting the water fall from his drenched body, showing a calm that he didn't really feel. Jungkook followed from behind, his face lowered listlessly but his hands still clenched tightly beside his body. They knew that the talk that would happen after this would change a lot in their lives. The security staff finally lowered his flashlight, but the tension between them still felt so real. He looked at the two big stars with a gaze that was difficult to interpret, between the respect and professional responsibility that he held. "You shouldn't be here," he said softly, a simple sentence that carries a huge burden of implications for their future. Those words hung in the air, creating a gap between the desires of the heart and the bitter reality that they have to face. Jungkook dared to look up, looking into the staff's eyes with a pleading look that he rarely showed to strangers. He did not ask for pity, he only asked for understanding that they are also human beings who need space to breathe and love. However, rules are rules, and in the world they live in, feelings often have to be sacrificed for the sake of a perfect image. Guilt began to appear in Jungkook's heart, not because of what he did, but because he dragged Taehyung into this dangerous position. That night, the swimming pool that is usually a place of relaxation turns into an emotional battlefield for the two of them. Every drop of water that falls on the marble floor feels like a clock counting down to a big storm. They stood there, wet and cold, waiting for the next decision or words that would come out of the secret guard's mouth. The beauty of the underwater kissing moment now feels like a very beautiful but deadly nightmare. After a long intense discussion, the staff finally nodded slowly, a sign that he would keep what he saw that night. However, he warned that this kind of luck would not come a second time in the future. There was an incredible sense of relief that enveloped Taehyung and Jungkook, but that relief was also accompanied by a new realization of how fragile their freedom was. They walked back to their respective rooms with heavy steps and hearts full of raging thoughts. Along the way back, not a single word was spoken between the two of them, but a short handshake in the dark corridor was enough to explain everything. They know that starting tomorrow, they have to act even better in front of the camera and in public as if nothing happened. The secret in the water will be a burden as well as a new strength for their relationship that is full of obstacles. The world may never know, but those memories will always live in their sanibari. The next day, the bright sunlight seemed to try to erase the traces of darkness and the secrets of the night. When they met in the practice room, their eyes only met briefly, but there was a deep understanding there that could not be read by others. They carry out routines as usual, laugh in front of other staff, and work hard as if there is no burden squeezing their chests. However, every time they passed the swimming pool area, there was a strange vibration that always appeared in each other's hearts. Taehyung pondered on the sidelines of his break, thinking about how thin the line between happiness and destruction in his life is. He loves Jungkook in a way that cannot be explained by the hit songs they sing every day on the big stage. For him, the moment in the water was the only moment where he felt really alive and being himself without the idol mask. However, he also realizes that the price of being himself is sometimes much more expensive than he can afford. On the other hand, Jungkook feels much more protective of Taehyung after the incident that night that almost took everything away. He paid attention to every little detail, making sure there were no hidden cameras or spies following their every step while they were together. This vigilance is exhausting, but for him, protecting Taehyung is a top priority that cannot be interfered with by anyone. He learned that love in their world is not about public recognition, but about the courage to keep secrets together. Rumors began to circulate among the internal staff about a strange incident in the swimming pool, although no concrete evidence came to the surface. The whispers are like a small fire that can turn into a big fire if not handled very carefully and professionally. Their manager began to provide extra supervision, making Taehyung and Jungkook's movement space more limited and suffocating. Every meeting they are now always watched by suspicious gazes that make the atmosphere very uncomfortable. However, in the midst of increasing pressure, the bond between them actually feels stronger and unshakable by anything. They found new ways to communicate silently, using body language that only the two of them can understand. A small smile, an accidental touch of the shoulder, or an eye code while on stage becomes a sweet escape from the harsh reality. They became an expert in hiding the storm behind a calm face and a charming smile for the fans. The psychology behind this wet cop makes them appreciate every second of time they have for just the two of them. They realize that the world may never be ready to accept the truth about their true feelings in the present. Therefore, they choose to keep the truth as the most precious treasure in their respective hearts. The intimacy that they build is no longer just physical, but a soul unity that has been tested by fear and threat. One night, when they were sitting on the balcony while staring at the city sky full of building lights, Taehyung finally spoke up about the future. He wondered how long they had to hide behind the shadows and pretend to be someone else for the sake of the industry's demands. Jungkook was just silent, but he pulled Taehyung into a warm embrace, giving a wordless answer that he would always be there. The silence of that night felt much more peaceful compared to the tension in the pool some time ago. They began to plan the future more wisely, considering every step very carefully so that there would be no more dangerous events. They learned to value privacy more and boundaries that must be maintained so that their relationship remains healthy in the middle of the camera light. Although the shadows of events in the water still often appear in their dreams, they use it as a reminder to always be careful. Their love is no longer just a teenage romance, but an adult commitment that is ready to face all the storms that come. In front of the camera, they remain Taekook, who is loved by millions of people with a friendship dynamic that looks very natural. But behind the scenes, they are two souls who have crossed fire and water together to defend what they believe is true. Fans may see their interaction and speculate, but only the two of them and one security staff know the real truth. The truth that is buried deep under the ripples of the pool water that is now calm and undisturbed. Every time they do a big show, there is a different energy that radiates from their amazing performance on stage. There is an inexplicable depth of emotion, a secret hidden behind every note they sing with emotion. The audience may only see the greatness of their vocals and dance, but for Taehyung and Jungkook, it is their way of celebrating their love. They dance above secrets, sing about longing, and live in the reality they create themselves. In the end, the incident in the water is not just about a hidden kiss or the risk of being caught by someone who is not interested. It was a transition moment where they stopped being just a group mate and became each other's protectors in a cruel world. They realized that even though the world can take away many things from them, the world will never be able to touch what is in their hearts. That love belongs to them completely, a sovereign territory that cannot be colonized by public opinion or employment contracts. The story of that night will remain a legend between the two of them, a secret chapter in the book of their lives that will never be published. They will keep moving forward, facing new albums, exhausting world tours, and endless pressure with their heads held high. As long as they have each other, there is no darkness or flashlight light that can make them really scared again. They have learned to breathe under pressure, just as they have learned to love under the silent water. And when this video ends, we are reminded that behind the magnificence of the stage and the glittering lights, there are humans with real and fragile feelings. Taekook is not just a fan's name or theory, but a representation of the struggle to love even in the most unexpected place. The secret in the water may still be hidden, but the impact will always be seen in the way they stare at each other forever. An end that is not really the end, but the beginning of a new chapter that is much stronger and more meaningful.